So it's not automatic that the debt's going to be canceled.
Correct.
Depending on the nature of the loan that we can talk about a little bit later, but the whereas though with the foreclosure, at least as we said for a first deed of trust, that lender is stopped from taking further action.
It's extinguished. Correct.
Yeah.
It's extinguished.
Okay. All right. Now let's say you go through one of these transactions. A short sale, and now the lender issues an information report, a 1099-C form.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And so it reports that this debt has been canceled. Is that binding on the lender?
Is it binding on the lender? So it's been, and I've read this on the internet too, and I've even had a client who had a real estate agent that says, you've gotten the 1099, and the real estate agent giving legal advice shouldn't happen, right?
Shouldn't happen, right?
So the real estate agent says that the lender can't go after you, but that's absolutely not true. Every situation is a little bit different. The 1099 is just simply a report to the government. It's not a declaration. It's not a waiver or some kind of declaration of extinguishment or something along these lines.
So it's not really a legal document. It's just a report of information, and it doesn't prevent the lender from necessarily taking other action.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, we were talking about the first mortgage. So when the first mortgage lender forecloses, does that prevent other junior mortgages? Say you have a second mortgage or an equity line of credit here. Can they collect their loans still?
Right. So let's give a real brief example. Let's say that there's a first loan for $300 and a second loan for $100. So the second loan is sometimes a home equity line of credit, and sometimes it's just a plain old, closed-end loan. And let's say the property, so we got 3 plus 1 is 400 debt, and let's say the property is worth 2. And the first says, I want to get paid, I want to run through the foreclosure. And in the first loan, the 300 guy, he forecloses. The second lender says, I think, and this is how it typically goes, the second lender is the junior lender. They say, we're just going to wait till it all passes over. So when the foreclosure process ends for the first loan, that means that the first loan is extinguished. The property's gone. The borrower has no obligations on the first loan. Unwittingly, the borrower will often say, well, I lost the house, so the second loan's gone too, and that's not true. The second loan, the $100,000 in that example, becomes an unsecured loan, just like a credit card, which means that the lender, the second lender, can sue you in court for up to 4 years. That thing is going to be an open account for 4 years unless you compromise.
Mm-hmm. Wow. All right. Now, in some cases, I've heard that homeowners can get an advantage when they do this foreclosure process. That they can stay in their homes rent-free for a period of time. So is that true?
Well, I think that's true. Let's look at a real simple example. Let's say somebody comes into the office today and they come in and they say, my house is worth $300 and my loan's $700, and there's no way that it's ever going to come back to $700. It was one of those things where it just got way too high and everything got out of hand, and we can't really pay the payment, or it doesn't really make sense. So we think we want to go through a foreclosure or a short sale, but let's just say we all conclude that foreclosure is in their best interest. It's pretty simple. You just do nothing. Mm-hmm. The foreclosure process, at a minimum, will take about 3.5 months, but it usually takes longer. And the real question is, if you just stop paying today, the first missed payment would be August 1st. How long after August 1st will a lender get their act in gear to actually sort of implement this foreclosure? Well, that could be, and I've seen this happen, that could be 1 to 2 years from now. And meanwhile, you're sitting in the house and you're living in the house. You're not paying taxes, you're not paying the mortgage payment, you're just sitting there. You might pay the insurance, but it's a pretty small price to pay. At any point in time, the foreclosure notice comes, and then you have this statutory 3-month cure period plus 21 days. So there is a length of time during which you can live in there, in a sense, for free, understanding at the end, when the foreclosure happens, you're going to be out very shortly thereafter.
Right. Now, another concern related to this that I've heard, because when I've talked to people about this, is they're saying, yeah, but let's say I do stay there. Am I going to be able to find a place when,
Right.
because my
right.
credit's going to be all messed up.
That's correct. So here's sort of a catch-22. Somebody will come in the office and they'll say, well, right now I have sterling credit. And intellectually, it makes no sense to keep going here. We should stop paying. And I always say, well, where are you going to live? One guy said, oh, yeah, that's right. We're not going to have a house. He was sort of
Yeah.
looking at the money only.
Right.
Well, that was silly.
Yeah.
So the question is, can you obtain alternative housing if you go through this? So can you buy another house? Most people can't buy another house. They can't qualify for 2 loans. So they're talking about renting other housing. So the trick is, do you have to rent right away, which means you get 0 free time, because you stop paying the mortgage, but you go over here and rent, so that's basically the same kind of payment. Or some people figure out a way to live in the house for free under this foreclosure scenario, and then at the end of that time, they can get a replacement house by renting. However, when they go out on the rental market with tarnished credit, then the choices are going to be limited, number one. And the other thing that we often forget is, in the real world, the ideal housing for you, depending if you have children, school
Yes.
districts, that kind of thing, you can't necessarily pick up the paper today and have a house tomorrow if you're looking for a specific location, that kind of thing.
Right.
So I always encourage people, if they're thinking about self-inflicting, which is what they really are doing, I say, do some market research. Find out what's out there, see what's out there, and even talk to some landlords and explain to them what's happening. And they usually, a good result will happen.
Okay. Now, part of the thing related to this, we didn't really have a question related to this, but it seems to me that in many cases the banks aren't in a hurry to move to foreclosure because maybe they already have more properties than they want.
Yeah, I have a lot of people come in to me and they say, you know, we would love to make a deal. You know, my house is in a certain community and the values went crazy. Now they're down at a different level. They were 800 and now it's worth 300. My loan is 700 and I just want to make a deal. I just want to have it modified, bring it back, because otherwise I'm going to have to leave and they'll get a property and they're not going to get much out of it anyway. It would make sense. I have this theory, however. Large institutional lenders have a certain capacity for handling these problems. They are beyond their capacity right now because there's more problems they can handle.
Yes.
Also, are they allowed to write down a loan institutionally? Are they willing to do that now, or do they want to do that later? So the top management says, we don't want to take any write-downs right now. And they tell their people in the field, don't do any write-downs, don't do any arrangements until next quarter, when it would be better for our financial statements. So those are some of the borrower, frankly, a lot of the homeowners don't really understand because the situation is bigger than them.
Yeah, okay. All right. So there's been some publicity related to government plans promoting loan modifications.
Right.
How's it been working?
Not good. Now, in light of the fact that most of the large financial institutions have paid back their bailout money, the government has little or no leverage over those institutions. They can only shame them, if you will, in the media. And the institutions are going to do what they're going to do. Remember that the chairman of the board and the management team of the institution is primarily beholden to the shareholder of the institution, which usually is them as much as anything else. And they're going to do what's best for them, sort of politically, public relations-wise, financially. And writing down a loan when they don't necessarily have to, which is not in their best interest, is just frankly not going to happen in many cases.